All right. My name is Cameron Pilkington, and this is our College for America submission for the Race and Myths project. And like my partner to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Kathy Windler. I'm excited to work with Cameron on this project. Cameron, would you like to start off with your myth?
Sure. So my myth that I'd like to share is that race is an ancient idea and that it predates slavery. During all my reading for this project, I found that the word slave is derived from Slavonic tribes that were being captured by the Germanic tribes in Europe, and then they would be sold to the Egyptians in the Middle Ages. This was really kind of interesting to see that slavery actually does predate race as an idea among humans by centuries. And the race really began as a modern idea in the early economy of the United States of America when they first began. So it really wasn't until then that race was a huge part of slavery, at least the slavery that we see in the mainstream media. During those early years of the colonies, there were hundreds of thousands of people that were indentured servants that came over, and they were Englishmen. They were white. And so there was a lot of people that actually began their time in America as indentured servants, as slaves. And it wasn't based on race. It was based on the fact that that was their status in their social status. They were poor in England, and so they came over as indentured servants because that's how they could. And so that's really the most interesting parts that I was able to see out of that myth.
So let me ask a question. So those first ones that were enslaved, you had mentioned about their social status, but it was also had to do with what type of skills they had, correct? So if they could build or if they could do certain things, they were entered into slavery, if you will, for those reasons, right?
Certainly, that was definitely probably part of that whole decision making process that they had to do. Is they, if I can chop down a tree, I'm pretty valuable in terms of, the people over there that are willing to give me food, shelter, and a passage to America if I can promise them that I'll start clearing forests. And so I think that was definitely a part of it.
Interesting.
Did you have a
and you
myth?
made it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, if we're ready, if you wanted to present your myth.
Okay. And I just wanted to kind of just go a little further on one of your points as far as what we see in media, in documents, in movies. When you come across things of that nature, that initial picture is African Americans or Black individuals that were enslaved, and it goes even before that. So that's a very good point. That's a very good point to drive, is that they weren't necessarily the first ones to be enslaved.
Definitely, yeah, definitely.
Okay, so it's my turn. So the myth that I wanted to debunk is that racial color blindness will fix it. I read an interesting in the race resource that we had. There was a line in there that basically said if we put on our blinders, the problem will go away. And this is has become more of a personal thing for me. My fiance is African American, and I always considered myself to be colorblind, that I didn't look at those things. But as I did my reading, what comes of that is that you don't see individual characteristics of people. I read an article on Psychology Today, and it states a colorblind approach allows us to deny uncomfortable cultural differences. And that's interesting and that's important. I think now really diving into this and looking at this, I have to question myself. Was that something that I did? And I would hope not. I don't think so, but it really brings some thoughts to mind doing this project. Another one was colorblindness creates a society that denies negative racial experiences, rejects cultural heritage, and invalidates unique perspective. What are your thoughts on that, Cameron?
Yeah, so I can definitely see the struggle of that racial colorblindness presents, and a lot of people find themselves saying, you know, if I say I don't see them as a Black person, then I'm doing good. I'm not racist, right? And I think when you're doing that, you're at the same time you're also devaluing them as a person, because that's part of what they are. That's part of who they are. And
Mhm.
um, so I do agree with that stance that in and of itself, racial colorblindness has a racist quality.
Exactly, exactly. And I never knew that until doing this project. So it was really something to think about. I'm excited to get
Yeah.
going and do our poster and get this finished and see where it goes.
All right. Well, thank you, Kathy. And we'll get, well, me too. I'm looking forward to getting this poster completed and the project finished. And it's been great to work with you. And
Thank you.
on to the next part.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.